Welcome to Let's Fix It Right. In this episode, I'll show you how to easily unpack, assemble, and initially adjust your new bike. This will be a girl's 24-inch Huffy Mountain Bike. However, most of the assembly tasks and techniques that I'm going to demonstrate apply to other bikes also. Thinking back to the time I was 11 years old, my father showed me how to complete most of these common tasks on my bikes, which still apply today. Nonetheless, this should be a valuable video for you, even if you have a different model and type of bike. My wife recently bought this bike for our granddaughter's birthday. Due to the public demand on bikes, exercise, and other recreational gear during the COVID crisis, we had to purchase her bike unassembled in this box, similar to a lot of you. While opening the box by hand, I recommend against using a razor knife, which can potentially scratch the paint, cut some of the cables, or damage other areas on the bike. When removing the bike from the box, you'll see that it is already partially assembled. So the unboxing and assembly are not overwhelming tasks if you follow my instructions step by step. In my case, these are the tools I needed. However, you may need a slight variation of them. Nonetheless, my tools are as follows: an adjustable crescent wrench, 15 and 14 millimeter ratchet sockets, socket wrench, and matching 15 and 14 millimeter box wrenches, an additional 10 millimeter box wrench, pliers, 6 millimeter and 5 millimeter Allen head wrenches, wire snips to cut the packing wires inside the box, Phillips screwdriver, straight blade screwdriver, and a razor knife to remove some of the cardboard wrapping around the bike parts. If you like assembling bikes and doing this type of work, I recommend that you purchase combination SAE and metric socket sets, SAE and metric box wrenches, and SAE and metric Allen head wrenches. For links to competitively priced versions of these tools, go to the description below and show more. As you can see, I'm using my basement workbench for assembling the bike. Considering that you may not have something like this, I recommend that you make a temporary workbench by cutting your box up and placing it over a coffee table or other piece of furniture. Okay, so we'll use our pliers and straight bladed screwdriver to remove these staples. Screwdriver gets most of them. Okay, so let's open up the box. Pull out some of the components. Seat. You can see we got some of them wired in here, or wire ties, so I'll have to cut those. Okay, so you can see that they have this pretty well packed in here, and they have the front tire woven in with its spokes over the pedal shaft. So let's get that off and remove the remainder of the packing material so we can get started here. Okay, so I have all the packing material removed. Let's see what we have with the bike here. I have the bikes set up on the bench here. First, I'm going to remove this packing guide here, the bottom of the fork, the front edge of the fork, so that it's more stable on my. We'll remove this plastic shield that protects the rear gear hub during shipping. Also have two protective shields over here on the front tire that comes off. So let's go around the bike real quick and see what we have. As you can see, most of the bike is assembled. So this is not an overwhelming task to put this together. So we have the bike with the rear tire, the chain, all the mechanism, the chain in place, routed properly, all the brake and gear shifting cables in place. Okay, so up front we have the handlebar, fork mechanism installed already. Fork is turned around, so we'll have to turn that around. Protective shield over bottom of the attachment on the handlebar. Also moving around the bike, I mentioned we have the front wheel, derailleur protector, left and right pedals that are marked accordingly, as well as on the center of the pedal shaft. We've got the left here and the right over here. and the owner's manual. In addition, I recommend that you familiarize yourself with the manual and make note of all the warnings. There are numerous warnings in here that cover safety related issues. So I would look through these, and there's a lot of good points within them. Read this, make sure you're familiar. Read only the ones that apply to your bike's configuration, obviously, but I would recommend reading through the entire manual. To install the seat, we'll start by loosening the quick release lever that will hold the seat post in place. Check for this minimum insertion mark. The seat must be installed at this mark or deeper into the bike frame for safety purposes. We'll then close the lever for the correct height, and while doing this, we'll align the seat along the center line of the bike. As necessary, we can easily change this adjustment later. Next, we'll turn the reflector around to the rear so it reflects light back onto oncoming cars, and tighten it down with a Phillips screwdriver. My granddaughter won't be out at night riding, but we'll install the reflector anyway. We'll now perform the second required seat adjustment with the bike upside down. As you can see, the seat is canted to the side because this joint is loose. When tightened, these two 14mm bolts will keep the seat from turning left and right, as well as tipping fore and aft. I'm going to go with the current tipping adjustment and see what my granddaughter prefers later. However, I'm going to move the forward edge of the seat so it aligns with the frame and the center of the handlebars. We've now achieved the correct alignment. Using the 14mm box wrench here, 14mm socket here, let's tighten this down. We'll go with the socket. We'll get this side tight. Flip-flop. And tighten the other side, the opposite side. And be careful not to knock the bike over when you're doing this. You notice I oriented the wrench so I'm pushing down rather than pushing up. If you push up, you're going to knock the bike over. Okay, we are tight on that side. And we're tight on both sides. We now have a good adjustment and we are tight on both sides. We'll next install the left and right pedals. The right pedal has standard right-hand threads and the left pedal has reverse left-hand threads, which you tighten by rotating it counterclockwise. Ensure that you don't cross-thread them by first hand tightening them and then torquing them down with your 15mm wrench. We'll continue tightening with our 15mm open-end wrench. We'll torque this down pretty good so we have a safe installation. So at this time we'll turn the bike around so you can easily see it, and we'll install the left pedal. Okay, so we'll install the left pedal at this time by turning the shaft counterclockwise, and you can see it's going in very easy, which shows that we're not cross-threading the thread. Okay, so we'll continue with our 15mm wrench. Move the pedal bolt shaft in a counterclockwise direction, or to the left with its left-hand thread. Okay, so that is tight. We're good to go there. We'll next install the derailleur guard over the derailleur mechanism, which protects the derailleur from rocks, tree branches, and other things along a bike path in rough terrain. To do this, we'll remove these two Phillips head screws in the rear of the bike. On this bike model, these Phillips head screws also have a 10mm bolt head on them for more secure tightening. With both screws out, we'll now reinstall the screws one at a time with the guard in place. Okay, so with this fairly tight with using the Phillips screwdriver, we'll torque these bolts down with our 10mm box wrench to ensure the derailleur stays in place. For the handlebar installation, we'll turn the fork around, which was shipped backwards for packing purposes. We'll now turn the fork around 180 degrees and face the brakes forward. Okay, so we have it turned around, but the brake line here is not correctly oriented, so we'll bring it below the bottom of the fork. Okay, so we now have that in good shape. In fact, we'll move this to the rear just a bit. Next, we'll remove the plastic plug from the handlebar wedge. We'll rotate the handlebar up to insert it into the bike's steering tube. Similar to the seat post, the handlebar shaft has a minimum insertion mark for safety purposes. It's important to ensure that this mark is at or below the top of the steering tube. We'll then extend the handlebar shaft into the tube, tighten it by hand, and ensure it's correctly oriented. Using our 6mm Allen head wrench, we'll partially tighten it into place. Later, we're going to loosen this up after installing the front tire to ensure the handlebars are perfectly perpendicular to the front tire and the steering is truly aligned. Next, we'll loosen the 6mm handlebar binder bolt here and rotate and center the handlebar to its utmost position. This enables a rider to clearly see the shifting lever numbers. As you tighten it, ensure that it remains centered in the joint and torque it all the way down. Lastly, we'll orient the handlebar reflector to the front and tighten it with a Phillips screwdriver. This concludes our initial handlebar orientation and installation. Remember, after installing the tire, we are going to properly and permanently align the handlebar with the front tire. To facilitate the tire installation, I've turned the bike upside down on my bench. Next, we'll remove the quick release brake cable so we can insert the front tire in between the brake pads. Hold the brake on one side and pull the cable free like this. With the brakes now open, extend them all the way out. Prior to inserting the front tire, check to see if you have a rotation arrow on the tire. If you do, match the front tire's rotation arrow with your rear tire's rotation arrow. If they don't align, turn the front tire around. In my case, I couldn't find rotation arrows on either tire. So I checked the tread alignment on the rear tire and aligned the front tire's tread orientation in the same direction as the rear tread. Once again, if these treads do not match, turn the front tire around. We can now install the front tire. Loosen the axle nuts on both sides of the tire to the outer edge of the shaft and pull the safety washers out against the nuts. Notice, with the bike upside down, the safety washer flanges fall to the bottom and automatically align with their corresponding slots in the bike fork. We'll slip the tire in between the brake pads and insert the safety washer flanges into their slots in the fork. Hand tighten the bolts on both sides. While getting these in place, we'll tighten the axle nuts down with a wrench. While doing this, we'll ensure the tire is straight and aligned in the center of the fork. In addition, both bolts need to be tightened similar distances on the axle shaft. For the rest of our assembly and adjustments, we'll move the bike off the bench to the floor. So we'll now drop the kickstand so the bike can stand on its own during this effort. This will provide us access to the upper components and allow us to easily adjust the brakes. As I mentioned before, we only had the handlebar partially tight. So we now need to permanently align the front tire to the handlebars by tightening the handlebar stem binder bolt here. And permanently torque it down with our 6mm Allen head wrench. Okay, we're in good shape there. Prior to adjusting the brakes, I noticed that the brake levers themselves are very loose. We need to orient these so the rider can easily grip them with confidence that he or she can stop and control the bike. And using a 5mm Allen head wrench, we'll torque them down now. Okay, so both of these are in very good shape, so we can continue with the brake adjustments. We'll start by reconnecting the front brake cable with its caliper hardware. If you recall, we had to disconnect the front brake caliper from its cable and cable mounting hardware in order to install the front tire. So at this time, we'll reconnect the cable with that hardware here and put it back into place. The cable is routed down here, continues along this curve, and goes straight across and over the top of the tire to the brake caliper on the opposite side of the tire. Out of curiosity, let's see if the tire turns now. It does, but it's dragging on this side here, so we'll need to make some adjustments. For a thorough and straightforward description of how to make these 4 important adjustments to your front and rear caliper brakes, see episode 51. In a follow-on episode, I'll address how to adjust your disc brakes. Next, it's important to properly inflate your front and rear tires. Most of you will be using a bicycle tire hand pump similar to this one. To expedite this effort, I'll use this pancake compressor that I've been using during my basement renovation project that you see in the background. It's obvious that these tires have low air pressure. For shipping, they were packed with a low air pressure condition. According to the marking on the sidewall of the tire, the range for these tires runs from 40 to 65 psi, or pounds per square inch. I always like to fill my tires to the upper portion of this range, so I'll shoot for approximately 50 psi. First, we'll unscrew the tire pressure caps. It's a good idea to check the tire pressure prior to filling the tire. However, I know it's going to be very low. As you can see, we have about 15 pounds of air pressure on the front and 15 on the back. So we'll first fill the front tire. We'll go with that first one. Pass there. And check this. Way too much air pressure. Still too much. And we're right about 47 or so. That's good on the front. Too low on the back, 35. So let's increase that. Quite enough, about 45. Uh, 50, we'll go with 50 on here. So we're good to go with the air pressure. So we'll put the caps back on. Okay, so that includes the initial assembly and adjustments on a bike. Next, take your bike for a ride to check the seat, handlebar, and brake settings. Similar to our seat adjustment discussion, you can also Make up and down handlebar adjustments as long as you keep the minimum insertion mark below its line or deeper into the steering tube. As necessary, make adjustments. Also ensure your front and rear gear derailleur shifting are good to go. If you need information on adjusting or using your derailleur for shifting, I recommend that you reference your bike's manual for the time being. I currently have plans for another 200 to 300 great videos. As I mentioned, episode 51 shows you how to make these 4 important adjustments to your front and rear caliper brakes. I also plan to release these additional bike videos, which include an episode on adjusting and using your derailleur for shifting. So I recommend that you subscribe to my channel and tell your friends about it. For a link to my channel that you can email to your friends, see the description below and select Show More. This concludes this episode on how to easily unpack, assemble, and initially adjust your new bike. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and select the YouTube bell so YouTube will notify you of all my new projects immediately after I publish them. At this time, I'm moving on to my next project. You're more than welcome to follow. In addition, if you have a great project that you want to post on my YouTube channel, email me some pictures and a brief description of it. If it qualifies for the Let's Fix It Right standards to help others, I'll interview you over the phone as a guest do-it-yourselfer, produce a high-quality video, and post it on my Let's Fix It Right channel. For the year following this posting, I'll share 50% of the potential YouTube benefits with you. If you have any subject matter requests or recommendations, please contact me. All of this said, I recommend that you subscribe to my channel, follow my projects, and save a bundle of money doing it.